Let's get right now on the line State Senator from the Lynchburg area, Republican Mark Peake. Senator Peake, great to have you with us.
Good morning, John. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic today. Well, the General Assembly in Virginia finally wrapping up a very progressive agenda being passed. Not a lot you guys could do to stop some of this stuff. You stopped some of it, but not a lot of it. Give us your take on the 2020 Virginia General Assembly.
Well, there's a lot to cover. First, let's talk about the budget very briefly. It's going to be a $142 billion budget. And if you think back just 4 years, Terry McAuliffe bragged about introducing the first Virginia biennial budget that topped $100 billion. So we have gone from just over $100 billion to $142 billion in 4 years. We're looking about a 30+%, 40% increase in spending. It was a little over $100 billion. And in 4 years, when the rate of inflation has been below 3%, probably around 2%. Mm-hmm. So it's a dramatic increase in spending. The other part about, we did block some things, thank goodness, and a lot of it was with the help of a lot of your listeners. The Second Amendment folks stopped the gun confiscation, which was huge. The AR-16s were not outlawed this session, but they will be coming back for those next session. So nobody should relax on that. And fortunately, and then right to work was not gutted, but they'll be coming back for that next session as well. And those are about the only two victories that we have that would have completely devastated the Commonwealth. But I was glad we were able to stop those two things. But this collective bargaining that for localities, they passed that is going to be one of the biggest hidden taxes in this year's session. Once localities vote to do that, you're going to have unions, teachers unions, police unions, fire unions are going to be getting involved heavily in all of these local elections, because board of supervisors or city councils, and then they'll be putting in people who are going to vote for collective bargaining. Those salaries are going to go up, those benefits are going to go up, and the only way you're going to be able to cover them is through massive increases in property taxes. So that's another backdoor tax increase from this session. And we gave counties the ability to tax without referendum for all kinds of meals, lodging, all kinds of different areas. So there are going to be a lot of county taxes going up as well. Those are hidden taxes, not to mention the energy taxes from the Virginia New Clean Economy and adopting RGGI. Dominion's going to do a lot of wind and solar, but all the cost of investing in that's going to be put off on the ratepayer. And that's going to be there's going to be a tremendous increase in people's power bills. So those are just some of the hidden costs that I don't think people are really focusing on yet.
Senator Peake, explain the Dominion Energy situation. I mean, I saw there was a op-ed written by one of the House members, Republican House members, Lee Ware, that really blasted what the Democrat General Assembly had done with the, I guess, Clean Energy Act, and how basically he was saying that they gave Dominion Energy a blank check. True or false?
I've read that op-ed as well, and I know Lee Ware well and respect him a tremendous amount. And I think the point of that is that they are going to be able to put these costs of developing all these clean energy sources onto the ratepayer, which, it is an investment on their part, but it's one that's being mandated by us. And so the governor's 2045 plan, what we just adopted in the General Assembly, we're saying, all right, forget all of these current plants that you have that are perfectly functioning. They produce carbon. You got to cut them out, develop all these new sources. Well, they're going to develop them, but we're going to be paying for it, and it's going to be expensive to develop it in the meantime. And I think that's what Lee Ware meant in that they're going to be able to pass all that along to the ratepayer as opposed to having to do some of the R&D on their own.
Tell us about the collective bargaining and why you think that is going to result in just increases in taxes for people.
Well, it's up to the locality. And then I don't know if you noticed, I think it was Fairfax County as soon as they pass one house before it's even been signed, their city or board of supervisors, city county, I can't remember if it's county or city, said, "Yep, we're going to do collective bargaining for our employees." It's one of the biggest cities around. Their school systems are huge. How are you going to? You're not just talking about teachers and all the staff, and then all the city staff. Yep. When you get collective bargaining, prices don't go down, and the things don't get cheaper, and you just spend more and more and more. And then one of the things that I've read about from people like in New Jersey and that have this type of thing for their city employees, those cities are going broke, those towns are going broke because they're paying 3 people for one job. They retired at 55, then they live to 85. The new guy comes on, so they got 2 people retired and one doing the work, and they're paying 3 of them through pensions that pay about 2/3 of their salary. A lot of those townships are in bad shape, and that's the kind of thing that that some localities are gonna adopt. If they don't do it initially, then the unions are going to get involved in their elections until they get the people on the city council or board of supervisors who vote to do it. And it's going to be a tremendous pressure. What they do is they're going to have to raise the property tax.
Is there going to be a reckoning?
Well, there's only so much money and there's only so much taxes people can pay before they start fleeing. Look at what's finally happening in California. There's a reckoning in California. People are fleeing California. Unfortunately, they're going to Texas, which has in Florida, but then they're starting to vote Democrat again.
Unbelievable.
And so it's happened in Virginia. People are fleeing New Jersey, New York. When they passed the tax on millionaires, shockingly, all the millionaires left New York and have been living in Florida and Texas, where they don't have to pay the millionaires tax. And so New York and California are set to lose congressional seats. Their population is declining. So eventually, yes, there is a reckoning. And we've got North Carolina and Tennessee along our borders who have very low taxes. Tennessee has no income tax. They're very pro-business. And they're not doing the things that we just did. And yes, people with their businesses can go somewhere else. With their income, wealthy individuals can reside in Florida. They can reside in Texas, reside in Tennessee. But that's not what we want to have happen. We want to be the best state to do business in, and I'm afraid a lot of things we just passed are going to stop that, and stop it quickly, really.
You're on the John Fredericks Radio Network. We are with Republican State Senator from Virginia, Mark Peake. He's from the Lynchburg area. Senator Peake, let's get to the transportation tax that got passed, biggest one we've had since the Bob McDonnell compromise in 2013. 10% gasoline tax up. That's supposed to improve our Virginia transportation infrastructure, roads, some of it hopefully going out the disaster called I-81. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I did not vote for it. My folks in this area do not have the transportation congestion, all those problems that they have in other areas. I will tell you, our tax, the road problem is real. I served on the Commonwealth Transportation Board under Bob McDonnell before I went into the Senate, and so I'm very familiar. Our cost of paving, there's almost no money for new roads because the gas tax, actually goes back to the 80s under Gerald Bilal,
right,
where they last raised the gas tax. Then we did the McDonnell plan, which really did not end up raising much money because they switched it to the wholesale and then the gas price dropped. They did raise the sales tax a little bit to offset that, but it was supposed to be the largest tax increase in history that turned out not to be a big tax increase. This one is going to be a true tax increase. It's going to be at 10 cents in 2 years, 5 cents a year on the per gallon. Fortunately for us, the price is low right now for gas. I don't like tax increases, but I can't. And it might not be good for our area. There might be more ways to do it more equitably. We've got to do something with the electric cars that are coming on. Volvo's going to do away with the gas engine. But the reality is we do not have enough money to pave the roads we have or do any kind of new investments. And 81 has been a problem for 40-plus years and has there have been talks for 40 years about adding a lane or doing something, and you do have to address these problems. It might not be this one was not the way that I would like to do it. The gas tax is regressive, which is a problem. It hurts rural areas that I represent because people have to drive much further to work. And then most of the money, like my other county, like Lynchburg, first of all, doesn't have an interstate. My rural counties don't connect to 81. 460 and Route 60, Route 29 are the main roads, and this money is not going to help them that much. And so that's the problem for the district that I represent with this package. But I do, Dick Sassall, you have him on there sometimes, and he has some pretty good quotes occasionally, and one of them was, we've been looking for 20, 30, 40 years for somebody who will build these roads and pave them for free, and so far we hadn't found anybody.
I thought that was a great line. No, look.
It was a good line, and you got to give it to him, and I just would like to find a way that is not regressive and does not hurt the people in my district, because we don't tend not to get a lot of money back. But you want roads, you want transportation, you've got to get resources somewhere. And I will say, unlike the McDonald tax plan where you had so many people opposed to it and it was the main talk, I've not really heard much about this when people have not complained. I think we are so much lower on the gas tax than North Carolina or Maryland. And gas, and fortunately gas is low right now and hopefully going lower. But we've got to look at the electric cars, and Dominion's pushing electric school buses, things like that. There are going to be much more electric vehicles, and so we're going to have to come up with a better way to get money for roads, and this is a start.
Well, Senator Peake, I also think one of the reasons you didn't see the outpouring of opposition was because the McDonald transportation tax, if you will, transportation compromise is what I call it, was unbelievably successful. I mean, that you cannot argue with success. I mean, all you have to do is drive from Virginia Beach to Washington, D.C. anytime, and the dramatic improvements made in that corridor are breathtaking. And I say this almost every week on the air. It's about 2/3 done, and it's taken already an hour and a half off my drive there. When it's complete, it'll knock 2 hours off my drive from what it was. Think about that, 2 hours each way. So I go up there every single week. So instead of 5 hours and a half, it's 3.5 when it's all done.
And we've got congestion problems, and we've got to address them. And I think the tax ended up not being as big because, fortunately, the gas prices went down, so it did not hurt people as much as was feared at the time it passed. I'll tell you the other reason probably it didn't get as much attention this time is because of guns. So everybody was so focused on guns. This was not as paid as much attention to. But nobody wants tax increases. I don't like them, but our roads do need work, and that's one of the core: transportation, education, and public safety. And if you're going to spend it, but we need. And one thing I will say, McDonald, we addressed is there's an audit, and then make sure that the money is accounted for and actually spent on roads, so it's not put in, taxed on this, and then spent on social programs. So that's something else. We'll have to make sure that every penny that's collected on these new taxes is actually spent on road improvements. Now, that's one of the problems with part of the new progressive majority is they like bike paths and walking paths and things like that really do not help with congestion. So we want to make sure it's spent wisely, and that'll be another fight as we collect the funds.
John Fredericks Radio Network. I got about 2 minutes. Senator Mark Peake with us, Republican State Senator, Virginia, Lynchburg. Joe Morrissey had a press conference yesterday. You were trying to ask some questions in it. We couldn't get to that. Yeah. But your point was, what was that about? You want to elaborate?
Well, the issue, what he talked about, he said, we need the state police. We should have the state police investigate. Well, Virginia State Police are not going to investigate a 15-year-old allegation in North Carolina and or whatever the years are, 13 and 15 something, and one in Massachusetts. Virginia State Police don't investigate alleged crimes that happened in North Carolina and Massachusetts. So that was a non-starter. They're not going to do it, and why should they? And they don't do advisory or fund things like that. It's not their job. Then what was he kept talking about? Due process. And due process involves government action. It's the Fifth Amendment, the 14th Amendment. It involves things the state does to interfere to take person's life, liberty, or property. This has nothing to do with state action. This is not a due process issue. The lieutenant governor can do anything that he wants. Nothing has happened to him from the state. His complaint, or beef, if you will, is with the two women who have made allegations against him. That's it. And he's not entitled to some state hearing or some state proceeding to address that because they've not sworn out criminal charges. There's no, to my understanding, is neither of those jurisdictions are investigating these charges. They know they would not get a conviction based on what has happened. I think the lieutenant governor and Joe Morrissey have given a pretty good defense against the charges. And there's not going to be a charge. So what he needs is a simple defamation suit against each of those two ladies, not something with CBS or LeVar Stoney or McAuliffe or anything. A defamation suit against the individual where they get put under oath and you ask them questions, take their testimony. He would do the same. If you want to get it out in the public, that seems to me the way you do it. But to claim that there's been no due process, there's been no breach of due process because there's no state action whatsoever. So those are and state police have no involvement in this. And he can't be impeached because these didn't happen while he was in office. You know, we talked about Virginia's impeachment stuff back with Northam. His stuff didn't happen while he was in office, didn't involve malfeasance or corruption or anything like that. So that's my thought on Joe Morrissey's press. Right. The other thought is, why do they keep bringing it up? He's running for governor. Run for governor. And,
I mean, look, I understand where you're coming from, Senator Peake. I was listening to the press conference. I thought it was interesting, but when it was over, I'm like, well, what exactly was the objective of that? We'll get Joe on. We'll get his side soon. John Fredericks Radio Network, Senator Mark Peake, Republican, Lynchburg. Thanks for being with us, Senator.
Thank you, John. Always a pleasure. Talk to you later.